It was 100 years ago. The year was 1923. The first baseball game was played in the original Yankee Stadium, the house that Ruth built. King Tut's burial chamber was opened in Egypt, and on June 8, Jack Ostwalt came into this world in Statesville, North Carolina. Jack's childhood was spent on a farm.
Dad and Mom had a house and they were farmers. I grew up on the farm. We did a lot of work out in the fields, picking cotton.
But from the looks of his 9th and 10th grade report cards, agriculture was not his strong suit. But in 1940, Jack graduated high school. It was about this time that Jack met his future wife, although she didn't know it at the time. Margaret Carroll Smith was 12 and Jack was 18. Maggie, as she was called, was at her grandparents' farm and turned down Jack's offer of a ride to the house.
And the first time I saw her, going up to her house, and she was down to get the mailbox. So Roland pulled up and said, "Polly, you want to ride?" "No." And that was my first meeting.
Shortly after, he left Statesville for Washington, D.C., where he worked in various jobs for a while. Then came the attack on Pearl Harbor. Jack joined the Army Air Corps in 1942.
I went to North Africa first.
Jack spent most of World War II in the European theater, with time in Calcutta and China, before returning to Fort Bragg and being discharged in 1945. Then it was back to Statesville. Once again, he offered Maggie a ride, but this time she accepted.
She walked up the gully to the house, and as time progressed, we started seeing each other.
Jack and Maggie were married in 1946, and the union lasted.
76 years is a long time.
While still in their 20s, their family grew to include a son and 3 daughters. Jack started his postal career.
Eventually, I got to work in the post office as a clerk carrier. I worked in the post office for 14 years.
The Ostwalts realized there were limited career opportunities in Statesville. During that time, Jack learned about the Postal Inspection Service and jumped at the opportunity to become an inspector when it came up.
When I was working in the post office, there was an opening and I applied and they accepted me. When I was accepted, they gave me a little old plaque, and I don't know what happened to it, but it showed that I'd been accepted as a postal inspector.
The year was 1958. Basic training for postal inspectors was held in Washington, D.C., so Jack was off to Washington again.
Our classes in Washington for, I think it was 6 months.
And after graduation, he was off to his first assignment, Hazard, Kentucky, where he worked mail theft, burglaries, and inspected post offices. Hazard was where he made his first arrest.
That was one of the best assignments I had.
Their first apartment was above a brothel, but they quickly moved to a house. But they weren't there very long.
And then I went to Louisville.
His first assignment was a territory assignment that included investigations of mail losses, vehicle accidents, internal theft, and audits. Louisville gave him an opportunity to work many cases, both criminal and audit. Jack had a preference. It was the criminal side.
On the criminal side, the audit is just a lot of auditing, adding and subtracting.
Louisville was also where Jack and Maggie raised their family. Great memories were formed there, and that's where the Ostwalt kids grew into adulthood. Louisville was home to Deborah, Rita, Melinda, and Keith. Jack's son, Keith, or Doug as he was known in the inspection service, followed in his footsteps and became an inspector. Jack was understandably proud.
I popped a button. He was willing to follow in footsteps. And anytime the kids do something good, it may pop a button or two.
But it was not just Doug he was proud of. Rita, Deborah, and Melinda all attended college and had professional careers.
Got some here too. all four.
Jack had a colorful inspection service career. In one particular mail theft case, Jack and his partner, Ben Pfeiffer, tracked down a letter carrier who was not delivering mail on his route. They went to his house to retrieve the undelivered mail and were shocked at what they found.
So he pulled down a pull-down ladder out of the hallway. So I climbed up the ladder and could only get my head into the attic. From one end of the attic to the other, it was full of third-class mail.
The case was so unusual it warranted a mention on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
We discovered that night on the Johnny Carson show that we had actually made national news.
Another case was worked with Army CID and involved a man who was stealing mail from the mailroom on the base. When Jack and Ben visited the suspect's girlfriend to find him, well, things got a little testy.
We had, through our investigation, we discovered his girlfriend, and we had visited with her. She said she hadn't seen him forever. Her mother was sitting at the table at the same time giving us a nod. So we knew there was something in the back. We went to the back and there was a barn. This was in farm country. And we went out and there was a young man up all the way in the top of this barn. And I said, "Young man, come down." And he said, "No, I'm not coming down." Jack Ostwalt said, "Ben, do you think I can bring him down with one shot?" He said, "Oh, I'll be right down, Inspector. I'll be right down." We worked on many over the years. He's a tremendous inspector.
Another colleague of Jack's, Inspector Dick Day, shared those sentiments.
Jack Ostwalt was truly a man that just set the goal real high.
After a 20-year career with the Postal Inspection Service, Jack retired in 1979. After that, it was volunteer work and then plenty of travel. His first volunteer gig was with the Jefferson County Police.
I did is kind of a little camaraderie back in law enforcement on the sideline.
Then it was off to explore the country. They bought an RV and traveled the country, visiting every state in the Union. Then they expanded their travels to Italy, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Morocco, and Mexico. In 2012, Jack was part of an honor flight of 109 World War II veterans who visited the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. The flight was sponsored by the Bluegrass chapter of the Kentucky Colonels. Jack felt it was a high honor to be part of this contingent. In later years, there were two sad events. Son Doug died unexpectedly in 2011, and Jack and Maggie's 76-year union ended with Maggie's passing. But happy times were celebrated with family at birthday milestones. Jack reached his 90th birthday, which brought family together to celebrate. And now, reaching the 100-year mark was another chance for family, friends, and grandchildren to once again gather together with Peepaw.
We had a gathering here. They were all there. We had a great time. Jack
Ostwalt was happy to reach the century mark.
I'm happy with the first 100. I don't want to go to another 100.